Imagine a place where advertising looks nothing like what you know from the streets of London or New York. There are no billboards screaming sale, no aggressive pre-rolls interrupting your video online, no leaflets that land in the bin faster than you can read them. Welcome to Qatar, a country where advertising is an art form, where the message doesn't say buy now, but become part of our story. Qatar is one of the smallest countries in the world, and at the same time, one of the richest. It's a place where, at one intersection, you can see a Lamborghini, a Range Rover, and a 20-year-old Toyota driven by an expat from Asia. A world in which out of every 100 people living in Doha, only 10% are Qataris, and the remaining 90 are expats, workers, professionals, temporary guests. But it's that 10% who decide everything. They, an elite whose surnames are written into the history of the region, are the target of the most unusual advertising ecosystem in the world. To sell something in Poland, all you need is a good TV spot, a Facebook campaign, a metro banner. To sell something in Qatar, that's a completely different league. Here, the client doesn't look for promotions, doesn't compare prices, doesn't check reviews online. He doesn't go shopping. Shopping comes to him, to his palace, to a private showroom, in the form of an elegant event where the invitation is a greater honor than any big discount. And in this world, a question is born. How do you sell something to someone who already has everything? How do you interest people who don't need products, only new stories? How do you speak to a client for whom buying is not an act of consumption, but a declaration of status? Because a premium Qatari doesn't buy a car. He buys the story that car will tell about his lineage. He doesn't buy perfume. He buys the memory of his grandparents sent by the campfire in the desert, translated into the language of a luxury bottle. He doesn't buy jewelry. He buys a symbol, an amulet he will pass on to his daughter and granddaughter as part of their inheritance. Now imagine you're the one who has to sell something to that client. You have to create a campaign that not only doesn't offend tradition, but emphasizes it. A campaign that doesn't shout, but whispers. A campaign that shows no cheap tricks, only aesthetics, symbolism, and respect. In this episode, I'll show you what marketing looks like in a world where billboards are overseen by an aesthetics council, influencers need a state license, and the most effective ad might be an invitation to dinner with no logos, no slogans, and no cameras. This is a story about advertising that doesn't sell a product. It sells the future. Let's begin. Imagine a client who never looks for promotions, never compares prices, never checks online reviews, and instead of going to a mall, walks into his own showroom in the palace where brands themselves present what's new. This is not science fiction. This is the Qatari premium client. On the one hand, conservative. On the other, modern to the core. Closed inside the family, open to the world. And for many marketers, invisible. Yet it is precisely this 10% elite that has shaped, and still shapes, the direction of the local advertising market. A Qatari, especially a Qatari from the Al Thani family or related circles, doesn't buy a product. He buys a story, access, status, and peace of mind. He won't come to your shop. He won't visit your website. But if you play it right, your brand will come to him. The style of internal advertising, narration through absence instead of a billboard, an invitation to a private event, instead of a TV spot, an exclusive video sent to closed WhatsApp groups, instead of an Instagram ad, cooperation with a family influencer who doesn't have 1 million followers but has a cousin in the palace. In Qatar, internal advertising aimed at local elites is the art of discretion. You're not allowed to be pushy. You're not allowed to be vulgarly rich. You have to be worthy of recommendation. The most effective tools here are forms of discreet marketing, prestige events, partnerships with foundations and education, presentations in museums or cultural centers, consultations with a named expert from Europe. The local mentality is pride, roots, sovereignty. Qataris like things done the Qatari way. Ads must contain respect for tradition, Bedouins the falcon, visual elegance, light tones, black, gold, blue, a delicate note of spirituality, meaning avoidance of noise, chaos, violence, and sexualization, references to local values, family, pride, past, and future in the same frame. The biggest successes? Campaigns that subtly connect luxury with humility before the past. Examples: a Rolls-Royce ad driving through the desert without showing the whole car, just its shadow next to a camel. A jewelry promotion where a piece appears as a gift from a father to his daughter on graduation day. A clothing collection inspired by Bedouin embroidery, presented by women in niqab, with eyes that say everything. What does the message look like? What does an ad sound like? You don't say, "Buy now, only 2,999 rials." You say, "Your choice, your time, your legacy." You don't write, "The best perfume on the market." You write, "From the stories about your grandfather, with notes of the desert, a scent for those who know where they come from." These are not slogans. They're verses from unspoken poems. Targeting, not age and gender, but circles of loyalty. In Qatar, you don't target woman 30 to 40, high income. You target daughter of a known philanthropist, wife of an ambassador from the Oxford cohort, son of one of 3 sheikhs who appears at galas in Lusail. How do you know these people? Through networks, through recommendations, through hidden PR channels that Doha lives on. Here, every client has a story, a number, a family, an origin, a taste. If you don't know his surname, you're not ready for internal advertising. What gets sold? Quietly. Luxury cars, custom jewelry with the family initials, clothing sewn by tailors from Saudi but with fabric from Italy, concierge services, flights, schools, treatment, art collections, promoted like a calligraphy show. This is not e-commerce, this is e-heritage. In summary, advertising to Qataris is the most exclusive ad format in the world. It doesn't work through budget. It doesn't work through algorithms. It works through respect, storytelling, and generational loyalty. Because if you're selling in Qatar to someone from the Al Thani lineage, you're not selling a product. You're selling a future built on the past. Influencers, Qatari style, who can and who can't. At first glance, everything looks familiar. Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, hashtags, challenges, selfies with luxury backdrops. But wait, this isn't Dubai, it's Qatar. And here, different rules apply. Popularity isn't everything, and clothing, tone of voice, and who you know matter more than the follower count. Welcome to the world of Qatari influencers, where prestige is more important than the algorithm, and one ill-considered word can mean a lifelong shadow ban. The Qatari influencer is not necessarily an influencer. A true influencer in Qatar often doesn't even have a public account. It might be a sheikh's daughter who posts only for friends, a fashion designer promoting local fabrics in a closed VIP circle, a doctor doing health Q&As on WhatsApp for royal families, a preacher whose clips are posted by fans. This is not an influencer in the Western sense. It's a person of influence. Quiet, discreet, often anonymous. And what about social media stars? They exist, but they have rules. In Qatar, anyone who wants to earn money from advertising on social media must have an official influencer license, issued by Qatar Media Corporation or the Ministry of Culture and Sports. Without it, you can't legally publish paid content. You risk financial penalties. You may be silenced without a court case, meaning you vanish from the feed, you're cut off from events, nobody will rent you a venue or show up to your live. It's a controlled market, but also a market protected from chaos. What is forbidden for an influencer? This is crucial. In Qatar, an influencer may not show alcohol, promote prohibited products, for example, certain supplements, jewelry with pagan symbols, tattoos, talk about religion in an ironic or critical way, take political stances, even on external issues, Palestine or Ukraine, insult other cultures, even unintentionally, post photos showing too much body for both women and men. Break those rules and you can get banned, lose contracts, or be publicly admonished by a state institution. Who really matters? The real power in Qatar lies with institutional influencers, museums, Qatar Foundation, Qatar Airways, Al Jazeera Arabic, events like Doha Forum, Qatar Cultural Week, Ajal Youth Film Festival. They invite premium influencers, often from abroad, but under tight selection. No scandals, agreement to a moral contract, restricted freedom of publication, and often the reward isn't money, but access and proximity to the elite. TikTok, Snapchat, don't they work? They do, but differently. Snapchat is very popular among young Qataris, but used mainly for private communication. TikTok? It's there. But you don't do dance virals here. You do family challenges, food stories, poetry, mini documentaries, fashion with a hidden message, showing the fabric, not the silhouette. Popular profiles look like My Life with My Mum in Doha, Bedouin Style in a Modern World, Cooking According to Grandma. This is value-driven content, not reach-driven content. Are there celebrities? Yes, mostly. Athletes, owners of racing stables, haute couture designers, hosts of religious or educational programs, well-known figures linked to the royal family, but they're VIP celebrities, non-aggressive, non-intrusive, often almost invisible in public space. Their influence comes from networks, not likes. How do you run a campaign with an influencer in Qatar? It's not send product, get a story, I pay. It's negotiations through an agency, official approval, a contract with a morals clause, a script approved by the client, monitoring community reactions, no commission based on likes, only the quality of contact matters. In Qatar, an influencer doesn't sell a lot. They sell something very specific to very specific people. In summary, a Qatari influencer is not a mass product. They're an ambassador of values, controlled, selected, embedded in the system. If you're a brand and want to work with an influencer, forget about virality, forget about shouting, build a relationship. Make sure you're culturally coherent, because in a country where silence carries more weight than noise, the influencer is not a star. They're a guide through values, loyalty, and dignity. Event as advertisement, the art of selling through invitation. In Qatar, advertising rarely shouts, "Buy me." More often it whispers, "Come and see. You don't have to buy, but you'll want to." This is a country where the most effective form of promotion is the event. Not mass, not chaotic, but planned down to every detail. The kind of event that, instead of a billboard, hands you an invitation, and instead of a discount code, offers respect. Why is an event in Qatar more than an ad? Because it's a social ritual, a meeting point of identity, prestige, and unspoken transactions. Events in Qatar often have many layers. A product presentation, for example, a new jewelry collection, a cultural thread, for example, a demonstration of local craftsmanship, the presence of important names, for example, a sheikh's daughter or an ambassador, a pretext for networking that results in silent consent to buy. Don't expect to sign a contract at the event. Expect the phone to ring 2 days later. Women's events. The most powerful, least visible advertising format. This is Qatar. Women aren't necessarily visible on billboards, but they often make the purchasing decisions, especially within the elite. That's why women's events are closed fashion and perfume shows, art and design presentations at M7 Doha, the fashion and design hub, themed evenings at Qatar Cultural Village, tastings, craft workshops, slow fashion. Cameras are banned, but recommendations spread in whispers. And here, a whisper is worth more than $1 million campaign. Men's events, the arena of business and prestige. Men's events usually have a different flavor. Horse races, falconry tournaments, luxury car showcases, charity galas with ambassadors. These are spaces for making gentlemen's agreements, sending signals of acceptance for a brand, confirming that someone in your family has already used something. You don't ask about the discount. You don't ask about the delivery date. You say, "My brother chose this too. Reserve it." Key ingredients of event as advertising in Qatar. Not mass, 50 to 200 people, carefully selected. Not in a mall, but in a museum, library, villa, embassy. Not with leaflets, but with curators, poets, and chefs. Not random. Everything must carry symbolic meaning. The invitation, tablecloth color, background music, guests of honor. Case study, a premium event uniting fashion and heritage brand X from Italy wants to enter Qatar. It doesn't put up a billboard. It organizes an evening called Return to the Roots. Venue, Museum of Islamic Art. Guests, 12 Qatari influencers, 4 members of the Al Thani family. Presentation, fabrics sewn by Italian artisans, inspired by Bedouin embroidery. Food, based on the recipe of one guest's great-great-grandfather. Ending, hand-calligraphed quotes about beauty as a gift from God. Not a single promotional slogan is spoken, yet all orders are placed by the end of the week. Events as segmentation tools. In Qatar, there is no newsletter for everyone. There are events for conservative women, for artistic women, for men in investments, for youth in Qatar Foundation programs, for expats in specific professional circles. That's laser-precise targeting, better than any Facebook algorithm. Events as keepsakes? After the event, a gift remains, but not a plastic pen. What remains is a personalized perfume based on the guest's name, a necklace with a Quranic quote engraved in silver, a photograph with a calligrapher, a voucher for an interior design consultation. It's emotion captured in an object, not advertising, an experience. In summary, in Qatar, the invitation holds the greatest value. It's an act of recognition, a gesture of trust, a sign that you are one of us. An event is not just product promotion. It's theater, diplomacy, and social approval. Because here, you don't sell through noise. You sell through presence. And the highest form of advertising is to be remembered as worthy. What does advertising look like on the street? In many countries, billboards are visual trash, chaotic, aggressive, cheap. In Qatar, they're monuments of marketing. They don't stand there to scream for attention, but to become part of a prestige landscape. A street in Doha is not just the way to work. It's an avenue of narratives, about luxury, about elegance, about the future, about who you are, if you're even allowed to look. What's allowed and what isn't. On the streets of Doha, you won't see neon colors, flashing lights, low prices, headlines, women's legs in stockings, or pop art style graphics. You will see golden lettering, dark minimalist backgrounds, geometric, Art Deco-inspired ornaments, arabesques, pride, instead of promotion. Every billboard must be approved by the city authority, the aesthetics committee, and the Council for Spatial Harmony. Yes, that really exists. And it rejects even the biggest players if a design does not fit into the shared visual community of Qatar. Murals as advertising? There is no graffiti in Qatar. This isn't a place for rebellious street aesthetics, but there are murals, and they are created under museum patronage, are made by artists from the Gulf region, carry an educational or poetic message. Example, murals in Mashireb downtown, with Arabic poetry about dignity, with calligraphy stylized like nomadic textiles. Ads can appear there, but as part of the artwork, not as a sales message. The brand name? Only if it's immersed in the narrative. Typical slogan? Absolutely not. In Qatar, everything you build is advertising. Your office, your restaurant, your showroom. Even the shape of the windows, wall colors, driveway design. That's why luxury brands don't open shops here. They build places to be experienced. Chanel opens a boutique resembling an Abbasid-era pavilion. Bentley shows cars in a black stone and marble pavilion where the ambient feels like dawn before morning prayer. Rolex has a showroom in Al Hazm Mall with columns that echo minarets and a display hall with a pearl fountain. This is not functional architecture. It's branding in stone and light, shadow, and emptiness. The silent elements of a campaign Doha at night doesn't glow like Tokyo, but it has its own language: white light, openness, golden light, luxury, darkness with a subtle glow, exclusivity. Many campaigns don't appear on billboards. They appear as dash lighting details on facades, projections on building walls, special illumination of museums during festivals. Light tells the story, not the graphic. That's why the passerby doesn't feel attacked. He feels invited. Where is advertising banned? Near mosques, no commercial ads at all. Near schools, only educational content. By main state residences, aesthetic purity on historical walls. Even the sponsor's logo must disappear. Qatar makes sure the street doesn't turn into a marketplace. It must remain a walkway of dignity. Street photography as a viral carrier. More and more campaigns rely on photos taken by passers-by. How? The brand installs an artistic structure. People take photos and tag the location. The hashtag collects hundreds of posts. There's no logo, no product, just emotion. I was in this place with mysterious light. I saw a quote about hope in calligraphy. It must have something to do with Qatar Foundation. The effect? Everyone talks about it. No one feels manipulated. Doha is now one of the best designed cities in the Gulf. Why? Because every district has a dedicated narrative, a coherent visual style, a story it tells through, how it looks. Mishreb, modernity plus tradition. Lusail, future plus minimalism. Education city, knowledge, light plus silence. Qatara, heritage, culture plus diversity. And if a brand fits into that story, it instantly gains in the eyes of residents. In summary, in Qatar, the street is not a battlefield for attention. It's a canvas for narratives. Advertising is present, but not obvious at first sight. Because here, silence conveys more than sound, light says more than images, and shadow has more power than any tagline. It's not a billboard. It's a manifesto of aesthetics, dignity, and values that don't need to be spoken. Advertising for expats, how to promote without offending. Over 80% of people living in Qatar are expats from India, Nepal, the Philippines, Egypt, Syria, Pakistan, Sudan, Kenya, Lebanon, the UK, Poland, or Canada. But although they are the majority, you still can't show them everything, can't say everything, and not every word will be appropriate. Why? Because expats in Qatar belong to different social classes, have different religious sensitivities, different education levels, and they live under a legal system that doesn't protect them in the same way it protects citizens. Advertising to expats is therefore a balancing act. If you push too hard, you offend. If you're too soft, you become invisible. Who is the expat in Qatar? There is no single profile. There are 3 layers: manual and low-wage workers, languages, Hindi, Urdu, Bengali, Tagalog, channels, posters, SMS, delivery apps, cable TV, FM radio, messages. Simple, direct, often about remittances, cheap products, budget entertainment. Middle class, specialists and technicians. Language, English, channels. Facebook, Instagram, ordering apps, malls, messages, saving time, promotions, practical family solutions, private healthcare, children's education. Senior expats, directors, consultants, freelancers, educators, language, English, often with cultural highbrow elements, channels, LinkedIn, professional events, social clubs, wine pairing evenings, enclosed settings, diplomacy. What is off limits? Regardless of class, advertising may not. Suggest criticism of Qatar or its system, use the language of Western activism. For example, fight for your rights. Enter taboo areas. Sexuality, comparative religion, interracial relationships, present content that is too open, even if in Poland it would be seen as neutral. Example, an ad for a Filipino food truck showing a romantic couple? Taken down. A spot with a woman in Bollywood dress showing her stomach? Taken down. A campaign with a rainbow background and the slogan, "Everyone is welcome"? Banned. It's not just about the law, it's about social mood and cultural boundaries. What works? Positive, non-conflict language, motifs of family, work, peace, subtle references to expat community, slogans like, "Take care of yourself, you deserve comfort, you work hard, relax the right way, for your family, for your future." Effective campaigns include low-cost money transfer services with strong emotional visuals, "Your mother is waiting for your transfer," prepaid packages with data and international minutes, promotions on national cuisines, Filipino, Indian, Lebanese, language courses, healthcare, education counseling for children. Where do you advertise to expats? Hypermarkets and their surroundings, Lulu, Carrefour, Safari, migration service centers and visa offices, delivery apps, Talabat, Snunu, mobile kiosks, bus stops in industrial districts, Salal industrial area, entrances to mosques, but with neutral ads, health, education, transport. Social media, not just meta among expats, huge roles are played by Facebook groups, Indians in Doha, Filipinos in Qatar, Pakistani moms in Lusail, WhatsApp and Telegram, local recommendation webs and classifieds, YouTube and TikTok in Hindi and Tagalog, DIY content, migration guides, life hacks. Often you don't even need paid advertising. It's enough to have a micro-influencer, a free lunch in exchange for a review, a community domino effect. The safety line, how not to go too far. Advertising to expats has to be realistic, but not humiliating. You can't suggest they are poor. You can't show them as servants. You can't say, "It's cheap because it's for you." Instead, a daily product that understands your needs. For those who work with heart, accessibility without compromise. This kind of messaging works everywhere and offends no one. Why bother? Because they are the engine of the market expats. Make nearly 90% of everyday purchases. Rent about 80% of apartments. Drive traffic in gastronomy, services, education, healthcare. Use local transport and apps. Shape trends among Qataris themselves, for example, popular Asian restaurants. They're the low-profile target with high processing power for communication. In summary, advertising to expats in Qatar is advertising of high social intelligence. You can't be too American. You can't be too ideological. You must be warm, dignified, useful, emotionally neutral, but supportive of the dignity of work. Because in Qatar, everyone is advertising something, but not everyone understands who they're speaking to. In Qatar, the winner is the one who understands that silence is louder than advertising and an invitation is more powerful than a 360-degree campaign. Selling here is a ritual, story, presence, loyalty, and the product is just an excuse. If you can speak the language of dignity, not discounts, you'll reach a circle where decisions don't have prices, they have surnames.